All right, thank you for that. My name is Terry Shepard, and I am not service-connected other than my granddad and my father both served in the military. And I do have the good fortune of also helping instruct the comedy boot camp. We had our graduation show last night. But it's been a really good honor sharing everybody's story and listening to everyone today. But I'd like to just start off with almost 7 years of sobriety. Thank you. That was until the summer of 1979 when my uncles took me fishing. So, like Bob said, it was, I grew up on the south side of Indianapolis, and I just remember a hot summer day, and I walked downstairs to get a bowl of cereal, and my uncle was talking to my mom in the kitchen, and he said, "I'm going to take TJ fishing today." And she said, "Well, as long as Dale doesn't go." Let me tell you, my Uncle Dean, I guess, was the baby of the family, so my mom thought he was the most trustworthy. And he said, "No problem, Dale is not coming along. Don't worry about it." She said, "Okay." So Dean takes me out to the car, and it was probably an early 70s model Oldsmobile, Buick, I don't know. To me, it looked like a boat. Big, giant car, and I get in the front seat. He lets me ride. Nice bucket or bench seat. I remember it being either red leather or red pleather. I couldn't tell, but I do know that it was a hot summer day, and I had my shorts on and my tank top and my flip-flops, and it was probably about 140 degrees on the seat there. So I sat down, and I smelled flesh burning immediately. We got in the car, and my uncle let me pop in the 8-track, and we listened to Bob Seger's "Beautiful Loser," which I think was an omen. I don't know what, but I just remember him driving that big old car down the road, and we made it just a few miles down the road to a pay lake that we would go to. We pulled up, and we got all our gear out. We had some styrofoam coolers filled with various things like hot dogs and Miller High Life. We got our fishing gear and our tackle out and started to cast out, and it was pretty easy there. I think it was a pay lake filled with lots of bluegill, because every time I would cast it out, I would bring something back in. And then all of a sudden I heard a motorcycle, just a big old Harley Davidson pulling right up, kicking up gravel, and that was my Uncle Dale. He was clad in his biker gear, his leather on that hot 80-degree day. And Dale came, and he started fishing with us. And I had asked Dean earlier in the car if he had hit a skunk. And Dean said, "Right on." And I noticed that when my Uncle Dale pulled up, he too must have just hit a skunk on his bike. And we cooked hot dogs, and we had a pretty good time. We would cast out in that hot sun and pull them in and having a good time until Uncle Dale decided it would be a cute idea to put a fish down his nephew's pants. So that was kind of fun. I had to wiggle that fish out. But it was a good bonding experience with the guys, and I always had a good time fishing. And we had ate hot dogs, and that had been a couple hours, but I continued to smell hot dogs, and I couldn't understand it until I looked down at my shoulders, which they too were cooking. This was the 1970s, so we had not invented sunscreen yet. But still a great time, and the sun started to set, and I think it was time for them to maybe move on to the next party, and they said, "Let's get you home." And they asked if I wanted to drive. And I should back up a bit, because I had had just a couple of Miller High Lifes before they let me get in the car. The first Miller High Life it didn't go down very well, but the second one went down pretty smooth. And they let me get in the front seat of that car, and I'm not even 4 feet tall. And somehow I'm sitting on the edge of the seat, and I'm steering this down this old gravel road, and I'm hitting each side of the cornfield on both sides. And I make it out to the busy street of Raymond Avenue, and they looked at each other and they said, maybe we should take it from here. So, which they did. We drove back toward my house, and I think they looked in the cooler and realized that they were out of beer. So they said, let's stop by the liquor store on the way and get another 6-pack. And my uncle said, I think I need to get you some gum as well. So they got me a big old pack of Big League Chew. I felt pretty good putting that in my mouth and chewing it. I did have a Cincinnati Reds hat on at the time, so I was a big fan of Tom Seaver. And I thought chewing that gum, that was really going to do the trick. My mom would not know that I had just had 2 Miller High Lifes at 7 years old. They said, just whatever you do, don't tell your mom you had anything to drink. I said, no problem. So I walked inside, and the first thing my mom said to me was, have you been drinking? No, Mom. And she looked at me and she said, that is the last time you were going fishing with your uncles. And they picked me up next week and took me again, fishing again. So, and my Uncle Dale, he would later go on to spend a few years in prison, but he did get out and turned his life around and became a granddad and an upstanding citizen. I think he was even the road commissioner of Rushville at one time. He passed away just a few years ago from Lewy body dementia. My Uncle Dean, though, a successful business owner in Savannah, Georgia, doing pretty well. I go visit him every now and again, and we certainly kick back a few Miller High Lifes. So, all right, thank you so much. That's my story.